Manitoba joined the growing list of provinces that announced a plan to do so. That plan includes 2 phases for now. Phase 1 starts next Monday. Non-urgent medical services, including surgeries, can resume. Restaurant patios will be allowed to open, and retail businesses, hair salons, museums, galleries, and libraries. Businesses, though, have to limit occupancy to 50% of normal levels or maintain 1 person per 10 square meters. Phase 2 won't begin until June 1st at the earliest. More personal services like nail salons are going to be allowed to open then. Restaurants will be able to provide dine-in services, and non-contact kids sports will be allowed. The province at that point may also allow gatherings of more than 10 people, but that's subject to advice from health officials. No dates have been set for future phases that would see all businesses open, including bars, movie theaters, pools, and spas. Mass gatherings, so we're talking sports, concerts, festivals, those won't even be considered until September, and no date has yet been set for schools to reopen. Here's Manitoba's Premier Brian Pallister. Hi, Premier Pallister. Good to see you again.
You too, Vashi.
Premier, when you were announcing today the plan to reopen the economy over a phased approach, you said this is not an announcement about a return to normal. What do you mean by that?
Well, there's going to be a new normal. You just, the old adage, you don't step in the same river twice. Things have changed, and we're going to have to be prepared to accept some of those changes, Vashi. I don't foresee a time in the near future where we're going to be able to depart from some of the fundamental practices that have got us the progress we've found to varying degrees across Canada. So social distancing practices, regular hand washing, the kinds of things, not sharing, sippy cups and musical instruments for our kids, things that will help us to get the progress we need are going to have to continue.
I know that even when you announce the various businesses, for example, as of May 4th, that can start to reopen, those physical distancing measures stay intact. So specifically, you have to stay a certain amount of feet apart within a store. How does your government plan on enforcing that?
Well, we have trained inspection people now in various departments. We've made the redeployment of some of them to this role a priority. We're going to be stepping that up. We hope it isn't necessary, as all premiers would say, I expect, but it is sad but true that we have a small number of people who do think that they can put their own personal interests ahead of those of others. So that'll be happening. I would also say, though, our emphasis in Manitoba has been from the get-go education, the dissemination of really good fundamental information to people so that they are able to make the right decisions to protect themselves and to protect the well-being of others too. And it's only because of Manitobans' willingness to do that that we're able to make the announcement we are today. Today's announcement of a removal of some of the restrictions immediately and others on a staged basis is largely due to the people of Manitoba being willing to do the right things. And it's a message, I think, for all Canadians to follow.
When you look at moving from the initial phase that you announced to the sort of secondary phase, which allows for the removal of even more of those restrictions, how are you going to judge if you're ready, and what might sort of turn the clock back or press pause on advancing to the next stage?
Well, clearly, I mean, case counts and the ratios of the progressions on the charts of those are a key aspect of what we're looking at, as I'm sure all jurisdictions are. We've just expanded testing, so we expect to a certain degree that there'll be a number that'll be higher as we go forward. But we're also going to see progress in terms of cases that are resolved in favor of the person recovering. And so there's that message too. But I think, again, the fundamental reality of this is that this is a pernicious and sneaky virus that is one we have to battle against. And we have to do that through disciplined behaviors that respect each other. So our move today is designed to protect the public safety of all our people in a way that also allows us to retrieve some of the freedoms that we've sacrificed, as all Canadians have and people around the world have to a degree, to battle this virus. We cannot afford to have a COVID comeback in this province, nor in this country. And so as we flatten the curve, we want to make sure that that effort continues. And what got us the progress that we've made to date is what is going to continue to get us the progress in the future if we're all disciplined and 100% committed to the challenges before us. That's how we'll recover. And that's when I say the world won't be the same, I mean, we have to change the way we're behaving and respect the reality of COVID-19.
I want to ask you about something else you mentioned a bit earlier today on the federal government's response thus far as financial aid goes. You said, we are fighting against a federal program that is actually paying people to stay out of the workforce right now. I don't like the fact that is real, but that is real. You're referring to the CERB, the program that allows for people to get $2,000 a month if they've lost their job or they can't work due to COVID-19. Do you fundamentally want to see that program dismantled? What exactly are you getting at there, Premier?
First of all, let me be really clear. I think that the premiers would agree with me unanimously. Our cooperative working relationship with the federal government's been nothing but positive, and I applaud the federal government for introducing these programs. But there are perverse potential outcomes or unintended consequences of virtually every government program, and let's be real. If you're paying a young person to stay home, and I'm not alluding necessarily just to CERB here, but also to additional funding for students, if you're paying them to stay home, then there is a tendency for them not to be as likely to enter the workforce. And right now in our province, we have a lot of people that are needed because we are hoping to reopen our economy. We need people to work. So I would encourage young people, I'd encourage all Canadians to take a look at the opportunities that are around our country and to pursue them for work, not for staying home and being paid not to.
With respect, Premier, though, what's the alternative remedy for the federal government? I mean, so many people were put out of work. We've seen, I think, 10 million applications to the CERB program. The fact is those jobs weren't available. What could the federal government do to remedy that? What alternative did they have?
Well, again, I don't want this framed as a criticism of the federal government. It's an observation and a reality. It's been pointed out by the national business organizations at the retail level, Federation of Independent Business, chambers of commerce. We've been consulting, as I'm sure other jurisdictions have, with our business leaders and community leaders, and they're all saying with one voice, they're concerned that we use every opportunity to get people back into the workforce. And so there is a very real concern. I think it would be acknowledged by the Prime Minister himself that we be careful, that we do not discourage people from seeking opportunities that are real and that are going to emerge during this pandemic and post-pandemic. So I would simply say we're trying to develop our programs to support and complement what the federal government's doing. For example, we have the most generous gap funding for those companies, small businesses that fall into the cracks of the federal programs and don't fit their criteria in the country. We have introduced the most generous incentives for student employment in Manitoba's history. I believe they are the most generous in Canada. So our efforts are designed to help people get to work, to be able to bounce back. And I think, as I've said before, I think it looks a lot better on a resume for a young person to be able to say in the years to come that they worked at something over the summer than that they stayed home and didn't and collected a federal government check. So I'm not discounting the need for people to get supports, and I have thanked very publicly, and I will do it again, the federal government for introducing these programs. But I am cognizant of the real, potentially dangerous consequences of rewarding people for not looking for work. We have lots of opportunities in our province, and I have encouraged people, and I will encourage them to seize those, because I know that our small business community is anxious to get back open, and they're anxious to employ people as they do that.
I understand the concern as well, Premier. I guess I wonder, though, is there evidence yet of that coming to fruition? Are there actually people who are choosing to stay home and not work and take this instead of taking a job? Or is this just at this point a concern? I ask because I think there would be a lot of students who would kind of fight back against that assumption.
Well, they might, but I'm basing my comments on the comments I'm getting from the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce, from the Manitoba Chamber of Commerce, from the Manitoba arm of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, and from various other retail council. Small businesses are looking for people. They would like to get back going. They are having trouble, in some cases, getting people back because they're being paid not to be available in the workforce. It's a reality. It's not a criticism. It's a reality. And we are facing it here by offering incentives for people to get back to work, by offering 50-50 incentives, in fact, on payroll for people to employ students and young people in our province by offering $6,000 to small businesses who don't get a program support from the federal government because the federal program, as good as it is, and I will say it again, the wage subsidy program, for example, is an excellent program, but as good as it isn't available to every small business. We have 125,000 small businesses in Manitoba. We're going to end up probably funding a good percentage of them because the federal government's programs don't fit their needs. I'm happy to do that. We designed our programs in Manitoba to complement the federal programs. And so again, I've been very genuinely in support of and praising the federal government for its programs. But the reality of the design of a couple of those programs is that they may deter people who could have an opportunity to work from not pursuing that opportunity.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you, Premier Pallister. Appreciate your time as always.
Great. Thanks again, Vashi.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.